I'm gonna do a show in a couple of weeks. You guys are the first ones to hear.
Oh,
Really?
nice.
So,
What show is that? By making it a one-day show, do you think that there would be competitors not necessarily in favor of that because they could be
No.
a competitor? You think the majority of like everybody would say the one-day show?
Oh, it would be 100. It's not, I'm not saying most of them. 100%. Kerrith will tell you,
Okay.
would absolutely
Bob
prefer to
can
go
answer
out
for
there
everybody.
Saturday afternoon and then come back Saturday night. I would take the time that we do the press conference now, I would shuffle that around, and I would have a big old cut rounds. But it preserves the integrity of the Olympia that this is not third grade T-ball. Okay, not everybody gets a crack at the bat. You got to make your way not only to the prejudging, but to the Joe Eater final stage. Something we can do. This isn't hard to do, but we got to pull the trigger soon if it's something that's going to be considered for this next season.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Bodybuilding Breakdown. It is post-2024 Olympia, and I am joined by quite a cast here. The voice of bodybuilding, MC of the Mystery Olympia, Bob Cicherillo. Fourth place in the 212 division, second year in a row. Kerrith, welcome back, my friend. Xavier Wills, who had the most views of any YouTube channel over the Olympia weekend. Certainly kicked my ass. What's going on, gentlemen? Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you did, man. No, I'm really glad to get all you guys here. I was really looking to get a few different perspectives on the Olympia, and I mean, this is it. So thank you everybody for joining me. Bob, I wanted to start with you, man. I wanted to start with you. Now,
Yeah, buddy.
this Olympia weekend must have been, I mean, it really must have been an experience for you. We had a lot of storylines that unfolded during this Olympia.
Yep.
It's always one thing to have the storylines going into the show. You know, we always have that, and then what the deliverables are on that. But this one definitely has some twists and turns. Tell us about your experience this year, man.
Well, I have a unique experience, as most people know. I'm at the podium, but which gives me a unique experience. But it's a lot of work, man. I mean, people don't understand or see. Like, just to give you an idea, right? It starts for me on Wednesday. We do the check-ins and all the athletes and all that. Thursday's the press conference. Thursday night, you got to meet the Olympians. You know, we're doing a lot of coverage and different things. And then Friday morning, it's a blur. Friday morning, I'm on the prejudging stage at 9 a.m. I get off about 3, at least I did on Friday. And then I'm back on the final stage at 6. So, I mean, I've got literally 2 hours, and then I'm on till, 11, 12 midnight. And then Saturday, it's a repeat. I'm on stage at 9 in the morning. I got out at 4 because that was longer on Saturday. I had about an hour to shove a cheeseburger down my throat, change into my suit, and shoot over there for pre-production. And then again, I'm on stage till, the last call. So it's a lot of work, but it's still really cool. Like, even after 21 years now, it's still like the coolest thing in the world. I got the best seat in the house. I'm right there. And all those twists and turns you mentioned, sub-story, I didn't have any idea in any of them. I mean, Bumstead never tipped his hand. Sid Gillian never tipped her hand. They saved it for the stage, and I found out when you did, so nothing was pre-planned in terms of who was calling it a day. But yeah, you're right. We had, returning, we had retiring, we had 6-time, 5-time, 8-time. I mean, and new and still and once again. So we had a little bit of everything, man. What a great Olympia.
No, it really was. We were just talking about this, how this year really did stand out. I mean, the 60th Olympia, of course, but this one really did stand out in a number of ways because of these storylines that unfolded just as the show was really, happening. And we're having some of those stories unfold after the Olympia as well. I've covered a couple of things there. Chris announcing that he's going to put in his own money for the prize money here. Samson Dowda saying that he will continue to compete despite winning the Mr. Olympia title. So it really just sets up, I think, the rest of the 2024 season and going into 2025 as really being, an exciting time in bodybuilding.
Oh, that there's no question. I mean, the sub-stories of the sub-stories were interesting, and we can cover a whole lot of that as we talk today on your podcast. Martin Fitzwater is a great sub-story. What a story that is. Missy Truscott coming back from a complete devastating injury, which would have ended most careers. She not only comes back, but she wins her third Fitness Olympia title, and so on and so on. I mean, and it wasn't just who did good, but obviously there was people that we were projecting to do well, like a Ramon, who ends up dropping a couple of places. So there is plenty to talk about when you talk about this Olympia.
You're 100% right. We'll get into some of that, but Xavier, my friend, you did unbelievable this weekend past on your channel, man. You did over 1 million views alone, just with like what 2-3 videos, I think.
I think it was people trying to find a free live stream and clicking on it, then clicking off. I think that was a decent amount of views were doing that for sure. They're going, because people in the comments were like, stream the video. And I'm like, I can't.
Look,
you're though, and I'm dropping that one to people, but it was good fun though, for sure.
Yeah, look, I was getting the same thing on my channel, of course, but the vast majority, I mean, I'm sure you were going through the same thing, was a very engaged fandom within the world of bodybuilding that really were just enjoying the show as a group of fans within, you know, a pretty substantial line for bodybuilding being yourself there. Like I said, over 1 million views is nothing to, I mean, that's nothing to snuff at, man. That's more than anybody in the YouTube world ended up getting there. I got to ask you, man, I mean, how does it really feel to know that you made a really substantial impact in the world of bodybuilding for the Mystery Olympia without even getting up from your fucking chair, man?
That's the thing. It's like, I feel very much like I used to go to the shows. I used to travel to, like, you know, all the Australian shows, the Australian Pro Show, the Arnold Classic Australia. And that's like putting in work, what like Bob's doing, like emceeing the shows and like the hustle of like all those hours. And then, you know, I remember when I was doing RX Muscle Australia and Dave Palumbo came out and I was trying to impress Dave by my work ethic. And I remember being up at night, like literally falling asleep while editing video and doing that sort of stuff. So I feel like a bit of a sham doing it, you know, the way I'm doing it and the way you can do it now. But it is fun to get on there and talk with like fans, and it's cool to see the excitement around this year's Olympia. And I think the way bodybuilding is building right now, with the extra money coming into it, you know, Jake, shout out to him. He gave away an extra, what, 300K straight away on the stage, plus the rings. I know they're expensive. Like those championship rings, they're nothing to sneeze at price wise. And the fact that he gave it to past champions too, very, very cool. And the way the Sandow was a special one as well. Like obviously that costs a lot more money, and to see Samson put it up and how it's transported in those, you know, the boxes and everything, like Jake doesn't spare any expenses when it comes to all that sort of stuff. So yeah, shout out in that regard. But man, it was such a cool Olympia weekend. Like Bob said, like all the stories that came out of it, it creates a very exciting coming into 2024. Then with the Arnold Classic, that's going to be spectacular because, you know, I don't know what we're going to see, if we're going to see like a Derek and a Hardy potentially do that show. But if we've got Samson, Andrew Jack, Martin Fitzwater, Hunter Labrada, maybe Nick Walker and all these other guys, no matter what, it's going to be a spectacular show. And then we've got shows after that. So yeah, it's awesome, man. I'm so happy with where bodybuilding's at right now.
The Olympia, you know, paving the way for the Arnold Classic, really another storyline that we can just, you know, transfer over to the next number of months here. You're absolutely right. But, you know, but like Bob, you were talking about behind the scenes at the actual show. That's one thing, though, when it comes to behind the scenes. And I got to give you a shout out, man, because you and everybody in the YouTube world, I know, because we were all firing messages back and forth like, man, I just got to get in like a half-hour nap before the prejudging or a half-hour nap before the finals just to be able to, you know, be on the stream for 4 or 5 hours kind of thing, right? Because that's what it took. Like for myself, I don't know what time it was where you were at, but man, finals finished at 3 a.m. for me, you know? So it was
prejudging started at 3 a.m. for me. So it was
Yeah. No, man, but really, that's what ends up happening, right? I actually, nobody knows this. I didn't tell anybody. I took about an hour nap before the finals. It started at 11 p.m. my time. My alarm went off, dude. I didn't fucking wake up. My wife had to kick me, and she was like, "Aren't you supposed to be on now?" And I looked, and it was like 15 minutes over, and I was like, "I got jumped up. I fucking splashed water in my face, and I was like, okay, I'm good." I had. Like it was a long weekend,
happened with
man.
me too. I woke up because I think the prejudging started at 3:30, and it was I think it was the Saturday prejudging for the classic physique, which is always Bob, this is and Kerrith, the classic physique actually gets the prejudging for the past 2 years for me, just streaming and talking about it, gets the most views out of anything, the classic physique prejudging. So it's a lot of
Me
people
too,
that
man.
maybe don't want to, and a lot of younger people that maybe don't have the money to pay for the pay-per-view or whatever,
Oh, listen,
that want to still see what's happening.
There's two good reasons for that. It's Chris and Bumstead.
I was about to say.
Yep.
Yep.
100%.
Brings the younger fans as well, for sure. Yeah, and they definitely want to know what was happening with that. So yeah, but it's interesting to see how popular that classic physique is becoming as well.
Yeah, I think Mike Sommerfeld is going to be the right guy to carry the torch going forward. Definitely.
He came out of nowhere. Well, not nowhere, but Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, from 8th to 2nd,
jump.
you're looking at another Wesley Visser's storyline here. I mean, Wesley was 7th at the 2023 Olympia and then won 2 Arnold Classics, and even him finishing where he did is another, pretty substantial story coming out of the Olympia, which we'll get into here. But Kerrith, my
What's
friend,
up?
4th place
What's up,
again.
Kevin? Talk to me.
Again,
man.
Again this year, man. No, listen. I know what you're going to say, but just let me say this first. Congratulations, man. Honestly, fourth in the world again. Fantastic showing. I mean, you're still standing with the best of the best, and you're still pushing for that top 3rd spot, man.
I got no complaints. It is what it is. It's subjective. We know what we do. We know what we sign up for. The rest is in the judge's hands. So I know that I beat the last interpretation of myself. And, that's really all I can go off. I'm not going to try and beat this guy because his look might not translate well to the judges. But I thought I did everything that I could do on that day to be at my best, and I was. So how can I be mad at that, right?
No, 100%. You can't, right?
Yeah.
Did you get feedback from the judges this year? What did they say?
Got feedback from a couple of judges, and it's more of we're on the right path. We just got to nail the conditioning. The timing might have been a little bit off. I could have peaked a little bit early, but it still translated very well. The night show, I came back even better, which I always do. That's kind of like my signature thing. Always come back at the night show a little bit tighter, a little bit drier. However, prejudging, they had me, I believe, in the 3rd spot, but ended up putting me in the 4th spot at the night show just to start the judging or the confirmation. And, it was kind of like going into the night show. We knew what we were facing. It definitely wasn't going to be a top 2 spot. We saw that. But, it could be argued, whatever. But end of the day, I still think I had enough to beat Angel. I would have loved an automatic qualifier. But, we still got to do the work, and I still got a lot of gas in the tank. So, we'll just keep pushing. That's all. It's another show. We didn't get the placing we wanted. Champions don't quit.
No, that's one thing for sure. That's you've never been a quitter. And I know that the fans are really going to enjoy seeing you compete throughout the year again. I mean, that's one advantage that we do have out of that. But no, you did. You had a good showing, man. You had a good showing. I personally, again, this year would have had you over Angel. Angel's certainly more muscular, but I think when you look at each individual pose that you win the majority of them. That's my own personal opinion here. But again, these are the hands that were dealt, and you being the competitor that you are, I know that you are going to continue on, and hopefully I'm hoping to see you at the New York Pro again, personally.
Oh man, no, definitely not going to do the New York Pro next year.
Really?
Yeah, no. I've done the New York Pro 3 times already.
Okay. Do you know what you want to do?
Yeah. I'm gonna do a show in a couple of weeks. You guys are the first ones to hear.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Yeah. So
what show is that?
I'm gonna say konnichiwa to all my people in Japan because we're heading to Japan in a couple of weeks. So that will be my first international show. One of those things that I have on the checklist. So we're definitely going to go to Japan, try to get an early qualifier, and have a long off season. Have time to grow, heal, do all the right things, and just go into the Olympia next year, fresh. I think that would be a deadly situation for me.
Yeah, I think that's smart. That's a smart plan.
Yeah. So, I look at it this way: 3 more weeks of suffering or start fresh with a 16-week prep. It's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Additional
Listen,
prep. Yeah.
not only is it a no-brainer, but I applaud this, and a lot of athletes need to start following in this protocol. You're already in condition. You're already in shape. You just summed it up. You're going to go back to zero, then you've got a full prep. Listen, while the iron is in the fire and hot, get out there if you can, compete. While you're in shape. Again, it's a couple of weeks, right? I mean, you can do this now. And listen, if it goes your way, that's a huge, huge advantage when you've got something that you never had before, which is a full year of preparation for next year's Olympia. Smart play, Kerrith.
Thank you, Bob. I'm glad you see it that way because, some people, oh, you've been prepping since January. So
all the more reason.
So
what's another few
you
weeks, really?
What it is to do a full 16-week prep.
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Japan's a bit of a sleeper show too. You don't have a lot of people that have Japan on their radar, and a lot of people that just aren't willing to travel there too. So that's a smart move. Yeah.
Well, it's a country I always
even
wanted
have to
see.
That's the other thing is you get to travel there too, right? So yeah, why not, man? Why not? No, I'm looking forward to that.
And unless Keon or Sean are jumping in, like obviously Kerrith is going to have no problems as well. So it's like it's cool, but you sort of get to pick which one.
I hope that's the case, but there's always that one freak. Hopefully, it's me.
You never know. Yeah.
There's always that one freak that shows up, and you're like, "What the fuck? I did my homework." Like this isn't supposed to happen this way.
You copped Keon a few times, I think, in smaller shows. I remember. I'm like, Kerrith he just got bad luck. Like that's rough. Man, Keon picks one show, and that's the one you're in.
That's it. Like for 3 years running, that was the fucking case. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Like I'm more conditioned than he is, but again, he is who he is, and he has the structure that he has. So it's just those are the hands.
But yeah, you had some battles though. That's cool to say. Like you and Keon were really battling through those years, which was fun.
Well, it's probably not public knowledge, but he and I go back and forth. He's like, this was his saying. We're more like the modern day Flex Wheeler and Chris Cormier.
The 212s, yeah, I like it.
The 212. So we kind of go back and forth. Like Flex is always the guy who's fucking sticking with Chris. Pause, but yeah, you know what I mean.
So want to go open someday?
Oh, yeah. So this actually is part of that strategy. So if we go to Tokyo, we win, it would be easier for me to do an open show, an open prep, and then diet down to the 212 Olympia. You get what I'm saying?
An open show before the 212 Olympia. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. So, and what do I have to lose by doing an open show? Absolutely nothing.
Listen, another great play. We saw Sean Clarita do that just a couple of years ago where he went into the Legion, beat a couple of big boys in Sergio and Regan Grimes, put himself on the map in that division. Then you've got a choice, obviously, and the correct choice for him, of course, was to, go into that 212, as I would suggest to you. But listen, it's a check in your pocket. It's getting yourself out there and testing the waters. And again, you're in a absolutely no-lose situation. That's not even your division. So you go in there and kick some ass, great. If you don't, people go, oh, yeah, you're a 212 guy, man. That's pretty good still. And so you're in an absolute no-lose position, bro, to try it.
Yeah, so, it's all based on the decision of doing the Japan Pro in a couple of weeks. So November 24th, I will be out there. Not looking forward to that flight, but goddamn, yeah, we got to do it.
It's closer for me than you, I think.
Hate that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's 14 hours straight flight from JFK.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not a good sleeper, and airplanes are gross. They're just gross.
Listen, pick out a bunch of movies you like. I do this all. I've actually had to learn how to do this because I do a lot of international travel these days where I didn't years ago. And I used to I have turned down Tony Doherty 5 times to come out to Australia to do his show. And I love Tony. I'd do anything for Tony, except I was always like, man, I can't get on that plane for everybody I talked to was like, it's long, bro. The whole thing. Now, I mean, I'm going to Saudi Arabia next week. I'm in Italy every other month or so for Panada. I'm in Dubai. I'm in Egypt. I'm in, everything. So the landscape changes. When business presents. But I would actually entertain that. If Tony invited me back to Australia, I would probably entertain it these days.
I'm sure he's listening.
I hope Tony does another show out of you.
What's that?
He doesn't have a show anymore?
No, he
doesn't have a show
anymore.
He doesn't. There was no more Arnold, but he still does the Australian Pro, I believe, right?
There's no open. They've only done like bikini and men's physique shows, and that's it. Recently, okay. But yeah, I think Tony lost a lot, like with the whole government here and everything, with that whole thing that happened. So yeah, he really caught the short end of a stick a few times over. So yeah, I feel for Tony. I always feel for him on that.
Yeah. No, there's no open qualifier in Australia anymore. There hasn't been for a few years now. It's too bad, really.
Yeah.
I think a lot of competitors get a kick going over there again. Yeah, it'd be cool. That would be cool. But for the Olympia that we just went through, we talked about the scheduling a little bit. Bob, I know that they had some pretty firm statements here when it came to the Olympia this year of when they wanted certain competitors to show up, because there were complaints the last couple of years about, when should competitors show up? When are we going to be on stage? And just timing really wasn't working out for a lot of competitors. This year, Dan Solomon, especially for the Open, came out and said, listen, there's no reason to be here before 8 p.m., right? There's a solid time, but I still felt like that was still kind of general, like before 8 p.m. Well, I mean, there's still a lot of time that can take place after 8 p.m. as well. So it's still very hard to really schedule that way. Is it? Do you know if anybody's been addressing that, or if they're looking at making any improvements, or even considering changing the schedule in order to accommodate, some of these athletes?
Well, again, there's always communication is the key, right? Last year, there was absolutely miscommunication, because I know there was athletes that were told, this is the start time, you got to be there. And they didn't go on till 11. So yeah, there was athletes there for hours where they didn't have to be, but it wasn't really their fault. And it was very small. That was when we were in Orlando, and there was almost no backstage. It was very cramped, very small. And you didn't really want athletes there that didn't need to be there for hours. And again, for any of us that have been pros or have ever competed, there's a big difference when you got 4 or 5 hours to fill up in terms of what food you have, what you bring with you, all that type of stuff. So the communication was much better this year. That's why Dan came out with that bold statement and did say, look, guys, you do not have to be there at the beginning of the show at 6. Don't come at 6. Don't come at 7 even. If you want to come at 8 or so, a lot of the guys prefer to be there an hour or so because they want to relax, kind of get into their zone and do their thing and, have plenty of time. You don't want to be rushing. So this year was much, much better. In the overall scheme of things, I would love to see us look at this schedule and change it around a little bit. I am not opposed to having it back on one day, and where we could shuffle these divisions around. Listen, we didn't have Classic back in the day. The 212 as it was back then was just in its infancy. Bikini and wellness have grown exponentially. You could easily put those on a Friday night to fill up a facility. And I have always been an advocate, like we did many, many years ago, of having a one-day show especially for the big boys, for the Mister. Put them on Saturday afternoon, and then you go on Saturday night for the finals. You don't have to peak overnight, which is very difficult. And let's face it, as bodybuilders, we all know the physiques would be 30% better if they were on at 12 noon rather than 10 or 11 at night. Any trainer will tell you that. Any bodybuilder will tell you that. So, something that we'll look at. But listen, the Olympia Committee is always looking to improve. We're always looking to make changes where it makes sense. And we wear a lot of hats in terms of, okay, we got financial responsibilities. We've got responsibilities to the athletes, responsibilities to the fans, responsibilities to the pay-per-view audience. So there's a lot of moving parts that you have to consider, but those are things that we can realistically do, and I think would better be served for the sport, the athletes, the fans, everybody.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Shoot.
Do you feel, Bob, that, and actually this is for all of you guys, do you feel that having a cap on each division would make for a better show?
You mean in terms of numbers of people qualifying?
Yes. Like,
Okay.
if we're going off of tiered shows,
Yeah, I
let's
got you.
say, let's say you got to win two tier two shows to get a qualifier versus winning a tier one show. Because that would kind of like
Sure.
tighten up the pool. But I mean, when you deal with a division like wellness,
Oh,
and
yeah.
wellness shows are a dime a dozen now. Classic physique shows are a dime a dozen. Men's physique shows. I think men's physique had what, 64?
They all the big three all had about
Yeah, something
60
like
in
that.
it,
Oh, I think
give or
classic.
take. So yeah.
Classic had
They all had
58.
the our three biggest divisions that each all had close to 60. So, but here's the short answer, Kerrith, on that. I've given a lot of thought and consideration into this, and I have a proposal that I've presented to the IFBB Pro League. Again, I wear different hats in this, so I get it from all standpoints. Do you want to put a cap? Yes and no. I would qualify everybody and their mother for the Olympia. However, because that's the money train, right? Listen, it's a business. At the end of the day, you want shows, you want sanction fees, you want athletes competing, and you want people to have the incentive to get to the Olympia. I have no problem with that. The problem I got is I'm all for that. You got to have a cut round when you get there. All right. So this would solve both things at the same time. Qualify a whole bunch of people that deservedly qualify. And then when you get there, I would take the time that we do the press conference now, I would shuffle that around, and I would have a big old cut round, just like they do in tennis and golf and wrestling and every other sport in this world. That had, listen, the Olympics, there's not 64 people running on it. You ever see a track with 64 lanes? No, they got 8 lanes because you got to make the semifinals, the quarterfinals, right? The whole thing. That's what I would suggest so that we don't cut off the flow. By the same token, you got to be the best of the best. And then after the cut round, you go to your prejudging, okay? And then you cut it down where you got just your top 10 on stage at night. And to me, that would be the best way to appease everybody. It allows athletes, a good opportunity to get to the Olympia, experience their first Olympia, right? Go on their social media and do all that kind of cool stuff and all that. But it preserves the integrity of the Olympia, that this is not third grade T-ball. Okay, not everybody gets a crack at the bat. You got to make your way not only to the prejudging, but to the Joe Eater final stage. Just my suggestion, but we'll see if the Pro League goes for it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think doing that, it creates a new form of entertainment because now you get to watch the cut round.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that holds a lot of value.
Listen, hypothetically, you would have had, again, I don't want to go into all the detail because, until it gets approved or it's something we look at, but, you guys can get the general idea. Out of 60 athletes that were there in any one of those big divisions, okay, 15 of them would have been pre-qualified from winning what I call major shows. That means 45 people, okay, 45 would have gone to the cut round, and maybe they only take 5 from there. Okay, so yeah, you got to make that cut, and it's exciting. And like you say, 5 people are going to get put off to the prejudging to join those 15 people. So now you start your prejudging with 20 people, not 60. And there's a big difference because 20 people can do their full routines. They don't get shortened. I mean, listen, we have to get 60 people across the stage in their individual presentations. That's an hour plus right there. And it's hard. Listen, I'm announcing these names, so I'm telling you, it's not easy, right? It's not easy on the athletes. And you know what's not easy on? The judges. Because you got to have eyes crossed to be sitting. You couldn't duct tape me into a chair. I applaud these guys. They get all kinds of shit all year. Of course, they're never right. Nobody agrees with their decision, right? It's all that stuff. You try sitting there and judging 340 Olympians going across the stage over the weekend. It's not easy, man. It's not easy, but that's what I would suggest that solves all the problems. I think it's progressive. I think it gives people an opportunity. By the same token, 45 people go to a cut round. And again, maybe I'm just making up numbers, but maybe 5 move on, top 5, move on to join those 15 winners of the major shows that we create or put out there. Name, whatever you want to call it. And like I say, you got 20, 25 people in a prejudging is very doable. And it's you're not there for 10 hours, right?
I agree. But I just
you really lose the fans. No, you lose the fans after a while too. Look, the fact of the matter is, for those of us that were sitting at home, once it gets to the third, fourth, fifth call outs, especially in classic, so it was twofold for classic. First off, like I said, third, fourth, fifth call, like third call out can have some decent guys, and there's guys that I was a fan of there. Like I think Jason Batterino was in third call out, things like that. But having 58 people as a backdrop as well, was very difficult when it came to looking at the first call out, you know?
Sure.
It's like seeing camouflage. That was one thing. Cramming 58 guys onto a stage. That's not necessarily fair to competitors either, you know? That's quite an area to just cram everybody.
Well, listen, I know, Kenson, we talked a little bit last time I was on your show about production and, how things kind of have to, they domino into things. Listen, you got to account for 60 plus people on a stage because next year could be more, right? Well, guess what? You need a bigger stage now. And when you need a bigger stage, it costs you a whole lot more money when you're at a venue like that, right? Yeah. And like the lighting needs to be more, the stage needs to be bigger. You got to navigate all these people. And like you said, no matter how you dice it, it's too many people to be prejudged for what's supposed to be the greatest bodybuilding show on earth. This is supposed to be the best of the best. So I have no problem. You can qualify 100 people for all I care. But you know what? You're going to get rid of 80 of them in the cut round on Thursday, in my opinion.
No, you're right, Bob. And when you look at it from the business perspective as well, when it comes to, like you originally were saying, having a one-day show is something you're in favor of. Well, having the cut round would be on that Friday. That would still allow all of the vendors, everybody that has booths, the fans to still have a weekend experience. It actually might make for a better experience when you think about it, because Friday may not be as crowded in particular if those who are so inclined to go to the expo, to go and see the show, to witness the stage without, the massive amount of people that you're going to get on that Saturday night. Ticket sales wise, it could make sense as well. You could look at what the price is for the Friday, what it would be for the Saturday. I could see it making a lot of sense. I certainly could.
Well, I would jumble the events so that the big three, that we had that had 60, close to 60 competitive, 58, 56, and 54, I think was one of the other ones, close to 60. Put those all on Friday so you have a Thursday cut round. Not every division needs a cut round. Like women's physique doesn't need a cut round. The 212 doesn't need a cut round, right? We don't have 50, 60 people in those things. So you don't have to do it for everything. But those three, I would have a cut round on Thursday. I would put those all on Friday would be obviously the prejudging and the finals for those divisions. And then Saturday, like I said, you've got your men's open. So I think anybody that competes, especially at this show, if you compete at the Friday morning prejudging, then you compete at Friday night at the finals. You compete at Saturday morning prejudging, you compete at Saturday night finals. So you don't have to carry over a physique for 24 hours, which is very difficult. And again, people that aren't bodybuilders or aren't trainers have no idea. And this isn't a marathon, right? We're just looking for the best physique. You shouldn't have to carry out I got to always give credit to Phil Heath because he never gets credit for being the first Olympian that he had to win shows on 2 days, not one. Before that, they were one-day ventures. Phil had to get ready for, they used to call Mr. Saturday Night, right? Because you get better on Saturday. But you shouldn't have to go out there 24 hours later and compete again.
Well, but you're right, though. Phil was Mr. Saturday Night. By making it a one-day show, do you think that there would be competitors not necessarily in favor of that because they could be a competitor? You think the majority of the everybody would say the one-day show?
Oh, it would be 100. I'm not saying most of them. 100%. Kerrith will tell you would absolutely prefer to go out there Saturday afternoon and then come back Saturday night. No questions about it.
Yeah, Bob will answer for everybody with that. Trust me. I don't even need to say anything more.
Yeah.
We talk about it backstage all the time.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a blanket statement like that, every athlete would like this. It seems like it's something that should definitely be considered very, very strongly before next year,
And listen, they will. Listen, Jim is and Tyler are very receptive to change. Dan, Jake, the Olympic committee. Again, you've got to check a lot of boxes here. It's not as easy as I'm making it sound because you have a lot of considerations to make, but it is doable. And I think it's something that I don't put things out there that I don't think that have a chance or they favor one person and not another. It's not equal. And that's something I've had to do for many years, as we talked about as the athlete's rep, as somebody who's involved with the pro league and also somebody that's been a pro bodybuilder. I'm looking out for the betterment of all. And I only present things that I think would have a good chance of checking all those boxes. But yes, it is a process, and it's something we can do. This isn't hard to do, but we got to pull the trigger soon if it's something that's going to be considered for this next season.
Oh, I'm all about having better physiques on stage. That's for sure.
I think, yeah, it's gotten to the point where there's so many shows now, and they said, it was like you win, you're in the Olympia, which is, I love, you know what I mean? It's you have to win a pro show, you get in, and it's sort of a right amount of numbers for some divisions. But then there's other divisions where it's, the entry fee to put on one of those shows is lower, plus it's popular, plus it's a nice add-on to an amateur show. And it just becomes that there's so many shows. If you're qualifying that many people, it means there's more than, on average, a show a weekend for that division, which is which gets crazy. So I think that Bob, I even suggested this on one of my podcasts. I think maybe, I don't know if Martin or Brett Wilkin were on there, but some of those guys were on there, and they didn't mind the idea of, like, if we split the season up into quarters or thirds, and we said for this group of shows, there's points, and you get most points for first and stuff like that. And it's sort of like a point system that you have to qualify 5 or 7 or.
I was never in favor of the point system for a lot of reasons. Number one is, first of all, the point system never gave us anybody of any worth. No offense to anybody that ever qualified there. But you know what I mean? The idea of I don't want to say forcing, but giving the incentive to people to compete time after time after time when it's not the healthiest thing in the world. That's something you got to be cognizant of as a federation, because you don't listen. There's people that'll kill themselves out there trying to get to the Olympia. And you got to be real careful with it, that how you dangle that carrot of, do I want somebody competing 6, 7, 8 times on the circuit because they're just so dead set on getting to the Olympia, right? And here's the other problem. How good are you going to be at the end of the year if you had to compete 6, 7, 8 times throughout the year? Listen, if you're in bodybuilding, in particular classic, you could forget about it, man. You are wasted. By the time you even get to July or August, you will be you have no chance of looking like anything but dog at the Olympia. So I get what you're saying, but if you look at things from that perspective, you go, oh, wait a minute. So I don't like a points thing. Again, I don't want to shut the gravy train down. Listen, you keep all those shows out there. A simple cut round solves all the problems. You get there, and you get there on your own expense, okay? You make the cut, they'll give you a check for, whatever that check is, right? The $5,000 reimbursement check or whatever. And that gets added. Because I would have major shows that automatically qualify you. And by the way, those major shows would also be the people that appear at the Meet the Olympians. Because with all due respect to all the people, out of 360 athletes that we had at the Olympia, I think people knew about 60 of them in terms of big names and all that. There was 300 athletes there that, again, with all due respect, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, that don't have a fan base. Nobody really knows who they are. It's 200 tables you got to set up. Navigating that thing is almost impossible because it's so crowded, with all these other athletes. But listen, the majority of the people are there to see X amount of people. We'll call them the superstars, right? Again, that was 60 out of 300 at best. I mean, I'm being gratuitous, right? But so I think that would solve, and again, check a lot of those boxes. I think that would solve a lot of problems and check a lot of boxes. That would be your, if you're out there with the ability to win a major show, chances are you are a superstar, or a top 5 guy, or that type of thing, top 5 girl. And those are the people that really should be at the Meet the Olympians. So that's who the fans want to see.
Bob, I totally agree. Like the only one minor thing is like people traveling from like Australia, which I look at straight away because I'm like, but it is sort of, I've seen it on an amateur level as well, where there's been guys that have gone and done the amateur Arnold, where they basically do a cut round and you're on stage for 5 minutes. And if you don't cut it, you've traveled from Australia, bad luck. You know what I mean? And they still get to say they've done the Olympia. So
and that's it, right? You still got there. Good for you. You want to get in the later rounds or on the Joe Weider final stage, get better. Welcome to the pros. That's what I say. Listen, they do this in every other sport. I follow golf because I've been an avid golfer for many, many years. Listen, there's a cut round there, right? Not everybody plays on Sunday, right? You got to make the cut. We hear about that all the time in golf, and only X amount go on to the Sunday finals, right? And that's any pro sport. I don't think we should be anything different.
When it comes right down to it, that would be a way to get to the fact that the Olympia is and always will be the best of the best. And it would really even emphasize that more so by having that cut round. And if you made it, well, there's motivation going into the next season as well. You know, you actually made it through. People, you may gain more notoriety by coming through and actually winning that show. So for the lower, we'll say the lower tier athletes in particular, the people that nobody necessarily may know about, you may be able to actually gain more notoriety by making it through the cuts, you know? So
Absolutely.
carry that into the Olympia weekend, you know, carry that into the next season. Like, look, I've done this already, right? So I could see a lot of merits to it. There's a lot to unpack there, absolutely, like you said, when it comes to how they would facilitate that. But I think it's something that could be very viable. I think you're absolutely correct there, and something that could be exciting for the fans. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, we'll see if we'll see if they bite on it and you know, accept the proposal. And again, everything's up for interpretation. There's 10 different ways we can do things, but I think there is a better way to do things. And let's face it, let's talk a little money here for a second. When you've got 360 athletes at an average of about $2,500 to $3,000 to fly over there, put up in a hotel, and give some per diem money to, I'm no mathematician, but 360 athletes times 3,000 each, it's about $1 million, right?
So the Olympia does reimburse people for their travel.
They pay for it in advance. You know, it's not even a reimbursement. I would go to a reimbursement, but yeah. So yes, Jake is spending about $1 million for, you could do the easy math. And that's why I kind of laugh when people, they throw numbers around like it's nothing. It's like, this guy just spent $1 million just to get people there. Okay. Forget about, they haven't increased the prize money yet. You haven't given out the prize money yet. You haven't, you know, obviously the regular costs that go with the show, but that's why I kind of, you know, I get a little snicker every time when you know, you get some people online, and it's like, I don't think you people realize like how much this stuff costs. Like, and again, with all due respect to those other athletes, right? You're spending a lot of money on 300 other athletes that aren't going to place. You know what I mean? That aren't going to do anything, you know, not to take away from them. They earn the right to get, but that doesn't mean that, you know, listen, they paid their way to the qualifier. You don't think they're going to pay their way to the Olympia?
So what you're saying is, for those individuals that are going and doing the cut round, unless you make it past the cut round,
correct,
expenses necessarily should not be on Jake Wood.
I wouldn't do it. If I was Jake Wood, or if I'm even making my recommendation, which I will, I would do like either a reimbursement program, or like I say, if they adopt my idea of the qualification system, you would pay for, again, let's just say 15 people that win major shows that we designate in advance. So that's a bonus that you kind of get. And then I would pay for an extra 5 or 10, again, whatever that number is that they want to take out of the cut round. Again, let's just make it 10. Okay. You got 15 and 10. So you got 25 people that you're paying for out of each division. And again, not all the divisions are that big, so some of them would be about the same anyway. But let me tell you something. Even if it was half the people, okay, let's just split it down into about 150, right? That's a big difference between $1 million and half. It's $500,000 savings. And you know where that $500,000 can go that he's spending it now? I don't know, maybe to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th place finishers who really don't get much of anything. I mean, how about you're 6th, 7th, or 8th in the world and you get a check with nothing? Thanks for coming, you know. And it's like, I've always wanted to see us pad up that back end a little bit. I'm all for the spoils to the winner because, again, we're in a performance-based sport, right? Where, you know, you win, you should get more money, right? And I'm all for the increase this year. Hats off to Jake, Dan, the Olympia, bumping that prize money up. Very cool. But I'd like to see that back end bump up a little bit where you place 10th, maybe you get a check for 10 grand. You know, you're 9th, you get a check for 20 grand and so on. That money's being spent right now on athletes that aren't even making the cut in effect. So that's, again, a lot of different ways to spread the wealth. And it's just one idea, but something I will hope we can look at.
No, it's a business. Absolutely.
I'm not one to, you know, like throw shade or anything, but let's be honest. Some athletes that are there, they just go for the experience. And I feel as if you have a system like what Bob just mentioned, some of the athletes are going to filter themselves out before you even get to a cut round.
Yeah.
So that's going to save as well. Yeah. You know, like I hate to say it that way, but it's true. It's just true. You know, some guys are going to say, what am I going to do? Show up and get 57th? and they're not going to go.
Well, it's the best of the best. It should be that way. And again, this whole cut round idea could give it that exclusivity. It really does show, again, you are the best of the best. Yeah, you want a pro show. Fantastic. You've got a fantastic physique. But can you compete with the best of the best? Well, you know what? Come down and we're really going to find out here. We're not just going to give you the opportunity to potentially stand next to Chris Bumstead when it comes to doing the initial callouts based on your number or your last name and the first initial of your last name. No, this is for the best of the best. And this is a way to put more of an emphasis on that. No, it absolutely is.
Bob.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Bob, what do you think about doing like a wild card, and Kerrith as well, like doing a wild card show like on a Thursday night and then doing the cut rounds with it? So we can do the cut rounds for the bigger divisions.
We actually did that years ago. We did a thing called the wild card showdown or something like that. Some years ago, and I think I want to say it was in the 212, where you actually could get there like the next night. I mean, listen, I'm all for anything that bumps up the excitement, that's, maybe a little out of the box, but preserves tradition. I'm all ears. Now, don't get me wrong. The challenge round, much maligned from years ago, was a complete disaster. I was never in favor of it. I knew it was going to bomb when they brought it up, and I did not like it for a couple different reasons, which was mostly that it's like, well, I get what they were kind of trying to go with, but it wasn't going to make any difference. There's a reason after prejudging that you have points that are awarded, right? Like after the prejudging, somebody's in first, somebody's in second, somebody's in third, right? All that kind of stuff. And this challenge round just kind of negated all that. And then you had a pose for pose confrontation, right? So here's the thing. Like you have like Ronnie versus, I don't know, Gunther or something like that, right, on that year. Well, Ronnie has already beaten Gunther in all these poses. That's why he's in first, and that's why Gunther's in fifth. So I don't care what pose Gunther called out. He wasn't going to win it against Ronnie Coleman. You see what I mean? It was kind of anticlimactic. I actually had, of course, a much better idea that I presented to them that I was hoping that they were going to adopt. So this was more along the lines of, you guys know we do like the People's Champion thing, right? That's voted on by the fans and all that. I had a thing called the People's Champion that was going to be based on the audience participation. And instead of this challenge round horse shit, my idea was to have two random guys get pulled out of a hat, or a bin or something like that. Think like Bloodsport. Remember when the names would pop up? Boom. You know what I mean? This guy versus that guy. These two guys come out. They pose down for 30 seconds or a minute, and then the audience votes on who they like better, right? The winner, whether you do an applause-o-meter or, some kind of stuff like that, right? Or, obviously this was years ago. Now we got phones. You can do a voting thing. Winner goes on to the next round. Loser, boom, you're out of here, right? And you do this with a series. Let's say you started with, I don't know, however athletes. You had, 24 athletes, and it goes to 12, then it goes to 6, then it goes, that type of thing. And it's just a series of pose downs, which is more exciting anyways. But so the people, and it's completely random. So at some point, two superstars are going to come up there, and somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose to go to the next round. And you just do this succession of kind of pose downs until you get to the last two, and the winner is the People's Champion. So I thought it was kind of cool. Again, I kept thinking Bloodsport with the names popping up on the screen just randomly type of thing.
Yeah. Hey Bob, I feel like we could do more with the screen and before like posing routines and with like guys. I loved it back in the day with guys talking and maybe even like they pull something from where they've talked on an interview or something, or they've. I remember back in the day they did it with in the press conference where guys talked on yours and Dan's show, Pro Bodybuilding Weekly. Like I've followed it literally. I remember back in the day with my dial-up internet to get listening to Pro Bodybuilding Weekly, and it was the one thing I'd hang out for every week, and I was like really looking forward to it. One week it was Jay on there, and then we had Ronnie leading up to the Olympia. So I remember like all of that. So yeah, I just wish that when it was back then and they'd play like the clips from guys talking on that show at the press conference and stuff, I think we could pull more of that back into it a bit and make it fun like that before the posing routines, to just get the audience just pulled into that posing routine at the start. Like, oh, he's talking smack about him. Well, let's see what he looks like. It makes it a bit more.
I've got, me, I'm an idea guy. I've had visions for years. I'd like to redesign a whole lot of things. I think I would take the press conference out from what we currently do, and I would put it in Thursday night, kind of make it a whole media night, with a different sort of a press conference, and I'll meet the Olympians and interviews and stuff like what you're talking about. I would kind of throw the cut round in on Thursday, and then put all that stuff on Thursday night, big media type, media night, exactly what we call it.
It'd be real cool is like what they do with, Sunday Night Football, when they start introducing who they are and where they're from. Even if you just got that little blurb of the athlete, I think it kind of gives you more insight as to who they are. I think that would be kind of cool.
Lots of stuff. We could do lots of stuff. I think, we can make a lot of changes and just make things fun and interesting, more for the fans, again, more for the media. Again, we could have roundtable thing like you watch NFL Today. Again, that can be done on Thursday night, and then some stuff with some athletes. And like I say, just, change it up and make it fun and keep it fresh.
I will say this, though.
And they stepped up this year.
Yeah, I will say this, though. We are on our way. Things are changing, and we see that things are getting better. So that's really, really cool. Like, kudos to everybody that's really trying, to save a sport that, I don't know why people don't give bodybuilding the love it deserves, because it legit controls all social media. Everything that everyone posts, everything that everyone does, it all comes from bodybuilding, fitness, fitfluencers, everybody, celebrities, the supplements they're taking, all the shit that they do stems from what we do, plain and simple.
And because it's so visual, that's why so many people follow it. Like you look at athletes in other sports, there's some athletes in other sports that are huge names that still post photos. And I look at their following, I'm like, they've got 300,000 followers. I'm like, Samson just gained 400,000 followers after he won the Olympia. He's gone from like 700,000. I just saw he's got 1.1 million now. So it's like bodybuilding. We are a very heavily followed industry in terms of like social media. And I even look at
guys score touchdown and do a front double bicep. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
It's the cool thing is it's integrated into every sport. Like you said, you'll see a front double bi or a most muscular or something. Listen, we're way more accepted than we were years ago. But the reason that we will never be mainstream is there is no defense in bodybuilding. Okay, people like sports. They like an offense and a defense. They like somebody scoring points, right? We are more pageant than sport, and that's why we'll forever kind of be where we at, even though we're much. We progress, but obviously we're never going to be, people keep asking, what do we got to do to be mainstream? And I keep answering, we're never going to be mainstream, but we don't have to be. You've got millions of fans out there within our own sport of bodybuilding, fitness, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's just the way it goes, right? We have to appeal to our own fan base and stop trying to appeal to a base that couldn't give two shits about bodybuilding. We have enough people to make a huge difference. Those are the people that we have to appeal to. Don't try to appeal to mom and pop out there who don't know anything about it, don't care. Listen, there's things we don't care about. I'm not watching ballroom dancing anytime soon. I don't have any interest in it, right? You can dress it up. You can shove it down my throat. You could make it change the rules. I don't have any interest in it. And that's kind of how we are to that. But we do have our own base of people, and they number in the multi-millions. Those are the people we need to appeal to.
Hey, but I'm gonna say something.
You're right, Bob.
Those same people, they're at the supplement shop buying vitamins. They're there buying whey protein, so they do it.
But they don't care about your most muscular. They don't care about. Listen, even strongman, which I love, and I've always loved strongman, right? Listen, these guys are lifting buses and stuff, right? I mean, come on, it's kind of some cool stuff that they do, right? I mean, it's interesting and it's athletic even, right? And all that. They don't get any love. They're not as popular as bodybuilding even because, again, there's no defense, right? We are a society that has been brought up with traditional type sports, soccer, football, baseball, basketball, right? All those things. I don't care what it is. If there's an opponent and you can score or get scored on, that's always going to take rank over what we do, because we are a sport of, and I use the word sport, but again, we're more pageantry, right? We're more showing a physique, but there is no defense, bro. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. No, you're right, Bob. But one of the here's one thing you're absolutely right about, and this is kind of a realization right here, right now. Bodybuilding is big enough now to stand on its own 2 feet without having to be compared to other sports, because that's always been the thing, myself included, guilty. Last conversation that we had, we were referring back to NHL or NFL or whatever. Bodybuilding does not need to be compared in order to be improved when it comes to other sports. Think about tennis, right? There's tennis matches, professional tennis matches that happen on a global scale, right? Same thing with golf. One could argue that the attendance at a tennis match is probably comparable to a professional bodybuilding competition, especially one that has an expo, right? Would there be any similarities there? That's without me going to a pro tennis match.
No, listen, you're not even close, bro. It's not even.
Oh,
listen,
no?
we are unfortunately, and again, I say this coming from a position of experience. We're not even on the map when it comes to this. Listen, the hot dog eating contest kicks our ass. Okay, yeah. Because it's interesting, it's freaky, it's something so out of the box that people find it fascinating, right? It's a train wreck. But you know what? It's an interesting train wreck. But again, that's a display, right? It's an oddball type thing. When it comes to sports, we're not close to anything. We're not close to baseball, tennis, again, any mainstream sport. You know what I mean? We're just not. And they will put up, listen, wrestling, okay? WWE wrestling will roll into any town on any given week of the year, 52 weeks. They'll go into bumfuck Tennessee and put 15,000 people in seats on a Monday Night Raw. We listen, that theater we were at sat less than 5,000. Okay, so just to give you a perspective, and even if I go back to the days of the Orleans Arena, that was 10,000 max. We've never done more than 10,000 people at an Olympia. Now, that gives you some perspective that a weekly television show of wrestling, okay, can put in more people on any given week. That's not their WrestleMania. That's just Monday Night Raw. But that gives you a perspective of where we kind of stand in that thing. Now, can we do better? Can we appeal to more? Yes, we can. Some of the changes I'm suggesting, I think, do help with that. But the bottom line is this. People cannot relate to a 260-pound or a 300-pound bodybuilder. It's just they don't relate to it. They can relate to a tennis player because they can play tennis. They can relate to a runner because they can run. They can relate to a golfer because they can golf. Right? And so it's all just relatable. The harder and more extreme you get, the less they can relate to it and the less popular it is. I mean, there's extreme sports out there that don't get any coverage, like the triathlon type stuff. Nobody is better than these people. I mean, come on, man. You're running a marathon, you're swimming 10 miles in the sea, and then you're on a bike for 26 miles, whatever it is. They get nothing, bro. They don't get any coverage. Nobody cares, right? They don't, because it's unrelatable.
So some of them
even still with that though. But no, even still, bodybuilding is still, I still maintain, and it's absolutely true. Bodybuilding is big enough on a global scale to stand on its own without being compared to any other sport in terms of trying to find improvements. You know, bodybuilding can be its own thing at this point, and that's absolutely, I think it's absolutely proper, to be honest with you. There's a lot of money in bodybuilding. It's on a global scale. Bodybuilding is certainly enough as it is, and it has continued to grow, and it will continue to grow. We are seeing massive growth in bodybuilding right now. More shows are going from being a one-day event to being expos. There's more prize money. There's more opportunities for competitors. It's still growing as well. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where it stands, in even, 5 years, 10 years.
So here's why that statement is kind of faulty, Kenzen, right? Because you got to look at it this way. Without social media, how much bodybuilding do you consume?
So zero, I guess.
Well, that's it, though. So it really can't hold its own yet. It's still dependent on social media.
To your point, Kerrith, and that's a great point, is yes, we have progressed, Kenson, but listen, it's not progressed as it, and again, in comparison to other sports, okay? Let's put it that way. We progressed in our own.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's think about this, right? The guy at the some random at the Waste Management Open in golf. Okay, the guy who places 143rd probably just made as much money as the runner up here at the Olympia. You know what I mean? It's those type of numbers that you look at and you go, we're not even close, right? It's taken us 60 years to get to $600,000. Now, most people would say, look, that's not even enough.
Okay, but is bodybuilding trying to get to that level? Is that
Well,
what
of course,
bodybuilding trying to do?
we're always trying, but there's a means and an ends that needs to be satisfied, right? Pros, on the by and large, do not sell tickets. Yeah, all right. This is, again, I come from a position of knowledge and of promotion. The amateurs sell tickets. Mom, dad, sis, and bro, and Uncle Junior will all come out. Kerrith will tell you the same thing. When you're competing locally as an amateur, up until the Nationals or the USA, you got 20 people, 30 people you're bringing to the show to root you on. The minute you turn pro, okay, listen, mom and dad have seen enough. Okay, let us know how you do, Kerrith. All right, yeah, give us a call. Let us know if you won, right? You got nothing except your wife or your significant other, or maybe your buddy comes out to a show. But we, by and large, do not sell tickets to pro shows. That is the problem. We don't have those kind of numbers to substantiate. That's why we're not on network TV. You and I talked about this last time, Kenson. Why aren't we on network TV? Because we can't sell time. We don't have enough people that watch it. That Ford company or Dairy Queen or anybody is going to spend millions of dollars when we don't have any numbers. They go, how many people watch? And they go, well, you had 210,000 people. And they go, oh, well, that's not very good. And they go, no, but, the third round of the whatever, had 31 million people that watch. Okay. That's why we didn't stay on network TV years ago when we did have some opportunity, because we didn't produce the numbers to substantiate us being on there. We don't sell those kind of tickets. But Kerrith, if I'm wrong on any of that, feel free to disagree.
No, it's true, man. It's true. There's
Right.
The only reason why I drew a crowd at the New York Pro is because it's local to me. That's the
There you go.
absolute only reason. I do get a few friends that will actually travel, out to Vegas or, even Orlando, but it's usually coinciding with business that they have with, those areas at that time. But for the most part, it's at the amateur level.
Just to follow up on that, 90% of the people, and I'm just making up a figure, so don't, all the crazies out there, don't get on me. 90% of the people at the Olympia are there for the men's open. Okay. 10% are there for everything else, from the 212 to bikini. Okay. That's just a fact. And how do we know that? Well, I can tell you this firsthand. Years ago, when we used to have ladies' night on Friday night at the Orleans Arena, okay, which was Miss Olympia, fitness, figure, all that stuff, right? And pretty much the men's Olympia, this is before we didn't have classic, we didn't have men's physique, any of that stuff. On Saturday night, at the Orleans Arena. Friday night, we wouldn't even fill up the floor. We would have half a floor of people. I mean, so you're literally looking at in the hundreds on Friday night for all of those other classes. That's why the prejudging ended up on Friday night, because we had to switch it because we were getting killed financially on Friday night. So for anybody that wants to know why did we ever move it from Saturday, that was the reason, is we had to put something Friday night to make up for the loss, because we were getting crushed. Saturday night, well, we got a full house, 8,000, 10,000 people for the Mr. Olympia. That's just the way it goes. But that's, that answers, I hope, a lot of questions that people have as to why things are the way they are.
Yeah, but you got to look at the appeal factor on a global scale. I think, considering the appeal factor, like you said, they tried it on network TV. The appeal factor was not there. Well, bodybuilding still didn't go away. Nor did social, and Kerrith, to your social media comment, social media is not going anywhere. That will continue to grow. And that means that bodybuilding, in turn, since it is essentially, as you say, 100% of how people consume it, is not going anywhere. Further to, your comment earlier of every other sport out there has an influence of bodybuilding in it. So for that reason as well, coupled with the fact that social media is not going anywhere and it's going to continue to grow, bodybuilding does stand on its own 2 feet, relatively speaking, like I said, when it comes to the appeal factor to the general people on a global scale. I think and I think everybody would agree that right now bodybuilding is in great shape. Is there more to do? Yeah. Do I still think it has room to grow? Absolutely. But some of these ideas is part of how it can get there, I think that these things are going to continue. I really do. Like, I see the fans, they're continuing to grow. People with social media followings are continuing to get more. And with that come more sponsorship opportunities. But anyway, that's really, going down a rabbit hole. At this point in time, I'm glad that bodybuilding is where it is, and that I'm coming in at a time where I am seeing substantial growth in a time where in the previous, 20, 30 years, whatever, there was no changes in prize money. There were things tried and failed. And now it just seems like there's more of an upward trajectory, which is great.
Yeah, I agree.
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's in good
100%.
shape. It's in a good spot. And, like again, we're blessed now where people are recognizing the efforts of the athletes and rewarding them, in a way where they have never been, because if you really want to factor in inflation, I think we're clearing the bar now. Like we're making up what was, potentially owed to the athlete to equate what they were getting paid back in the day and even more. With the prize money at what 600K for first place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big jump. That's a huge jump. I'm not
Yeah.
a mathematician or anything like that, but it seems like that would, trump the inflation rate and give a little bit more ahead of schedule.
These were all really good, like really great ideas just for the sport in general, man. Really, like I really think
We
that
just got to
there's
get that to trickle down to 212, Bob.
Hey, listen, again, if we make changes on one side, it opens up salary cap for others. I'd love to see some of these doubled, your class included, and I'd really like to see 6 through 10 in every class. I think you should, if you're in the top 10 of what you do in the world, you should get something. I mean, again, it may not be it may not be crazy, right? But listen, can you get 10 grand? Can you get 20 grand, 30 grand? I think that's very doable, but it's doable if we take money from pot A and kind of divert it into pot B and listen to the spoils go, to the winners, right? I mean, that's sports, right? That's business.
Yeah.
Do you think it's
Absolutely,
partly a
absolutely.
problem, not a problem, but because obviously the Olympia is privately owned, and it's like, well, that's like the granddaddy of bodybuilding. But then so much falls on Jake Wood to be like, okay, well, this is the best show in the world, so you should be
Sure.
getting X amount of dollars. Because a guy who obviously that if you're competing in the Olympia, you've won a show, so you've won a minimum of 15K at one of these
Sure.
smaller shows. So then to get eighth in the world, if you get less money than 15K, it seems like you said, it seems funny. It doesn't seems like maybe you should get a little bit more than dregs at eighth
Well,
in the world.
yeah. There's only so much to go around, and these shows are extremely
Of
expensive.
course.
Jake Wood shells out millions, just in what I told you guys earlier. You got $1 million
Oh,
just
yeah.
in per diem. So that doesn't include anything. I mean, you haven't touched, even the surface of how much it costs to rent a venue, a theater, pay staff, put up prize. Prize money was one point. Well, let's see. From where it was, I think it's another 300. So I don't know. It's like 1.5 million now or something like that.
I saw
No.
1.4 or 1.5 or 1.6 or something. Yeah, I saw
I think
that
it's
number.
with the increase, I think it's around 1.5 or maybe even 1.6 now. And for people that like to compare it to the Arnold, look at these are apples and oranges, folks. The Arnold only has half the divisions. So while I applaud Arnold for wanting to give out more money, and I think they absolutely should, it's non-comparable with the Olympia. First of all, the Arnold is a qualifier for the Olympia. Okay, so let's just establish that. Secondly,
It's a good point.
it's the second biggest show that we got on the earth, and that's great. And Arnold has his own brand, and that's cool. But we have 11 divisions. They have 5. Okay, so yeah, you can put up a lot more money in those 5 divisions when you don't have another 5 to spread out the monies and the wealth. The Olympia by far is still giving away twice as much money as any other competition on this earth. And to your point, Kenson, earlier, bodybuilding worldwide is very popular. When you go overseas, I mean, it's like it's 1989 again.
Yeah.
Like these people are enthusiastic. They're crazy. I love all my Iranian fans, by the way, but let's ease off, guy, on the threats. I only announced the name. Okay. I swear to God, like they think like I'm the one making the decision. How dare you not say Hadi's name? It's like, guy, I don't make the decision. Okay. I just announced the name, but they're a little nuts out there, but I love them. But Sean asked the question at the press conference to Hadi, and they thought he was being like disrespectful. And it's like, guys, you got to really ease off, man. I mean, it's not that crazy. Okay. So take it easy.
Passionate.
I like the questions by
almost
Sean. Like we needed Sean in there to ask the hard questions. But actually, I was impressed with I think some of the questions by some of the guys were maybe a little bit too long, which is fine. But I think some of the questions were brilliant.
Agreed.
Like you had the brilliant panel there, like Lenda, you had Fuad, which was good. Like even when Fuad asked Andrew the question, because there's that little bit of like tension between them, me watching that at home, it made me like, ooh, like what's Andrew going to say? Like it was exciting in that way. Like, yeah, the guys weren't necessarily making it super exciting outside of Samson, obviously, but it was still, I think that press conference was a lot better than it had been. I feel like it started to go away from what people really liked, and I feel like this year was a step back towards it. And then I feel like if we can like the tiered seating ones, when we had you and we had Dennis James and stuff like that, that was really cool. I think if we did something between that and having what we had this year, that would be, I think that would please everyone.
Again, there's always ways to freshen up, change things. Again, I would take it out of its current state. I would put it on Thursday night. Again, make it a full media night. I would have I don't know what I call a talk show format, a little bit more, where instead of having 20 people out there with 15 of them falling asleep when you're asking questions to the other ones, I would honestly bring them out in smaller groups, like almost like think of like the Tonight Show, right? Where I would have a desk there with a mug with the Olympia logo on it, and you'd bring out small, maybe there's 2 on this one, maybe there's 4 on this one, maybe there's another. Here's the champ, all right? Here's the contender, and you kind of throw commercials in between. So you shoot it like you're shooting a show where you can sell time and you can sell sponsorship and run commercials, and people can watch this live Thursday night, on that stage end of the press conference. At the Meet the Olympians, we'd have like that press conference style. But to me, there's no reason to have 20 people sitting out there as we're drowning on for 15 minutes about bikini or about the 212 or about the classic or about anything, right? You don't need all the athletes and all the other divisions sitting there at the same time as they're falling asleep, and then, going thirsty and wanting to get the hell out of there. The girls absolutely don't like it at all. They never have, because they got hair, makeup, tanning appointments, right? All the stuff that they got to do. They're not talking trash. They don't care. They really didn't want to do it back in the day. That's why we kind of got rid of that for a while. And, I get all the points to it, but it's just my own opinion and something I've suggested. But I think I would like to see maybe that type of format where, again, it's more of a sit down interview style with, 1 person, 2 people, 4 people on this one, 5 people. And then and they're right there. They're right there at the Meet the Olympians. Go get them, bring them over, do the interview, go back and meet and greet your people and your fans, right? So it's an idea, but I think that would be, something to look at that I think would be a little more exciting, a little less dragging, and, a little bit just more exciting for everybody.
Yeah, the fans could
agree. I sort of like
who they want to see too. Yeah. Yeah, it would be.
I sort of like sorry, Kenson. I think I'm going to delay,
look,
sorry.
No, look, it's just my show. You go ahead, man.
That's just
no, go ahead. Really, go ahead.
I sort of like the fact that we could have I agree. Like, we don't want the multiple divisions on stage at once. Like, that just, for me, I felt bad for some of the open guys. Like, they don't need to actually just be there at all, while they're talking to all these other divisions. So I was like, I agree. Completely separate the divisions in that way. I just like the fact that back in the day we had, a Ben Pekulski calling out, whoever, and then we had this guy and they can sort of, shout out across to each other. So I like just having one division on there and just maybe top 10 or top 12 or whatever, and then just have the press conference where we don't have to drag that part out for 2 hours. And then if people want to watch the classic, I'd be watching the 212, the classic, and the open. And, if you want to put other divisions in between and, let people know, hey, we've got this division up next. Cool, sweet. I'll take a little break.
Yeah.
And then I'll be straight back to it, because the press conference, we don't need to be captured in there, yes, a few sponsor ads and things like that, but they can run in between and across the bottom of the screen of a logo, like you mentioned, Bob. So, yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I think
that's right.
Honestly, I think put you, Dave Palumbo, and a bunch of people like you, I know you probably kill each other, but you guys in a room and just spitball it, because there's great ideas there. And I think the Olympia this year I think they listened more this year than any other year. Like, I think the timing with the athletes was better. The length of the show was better. The number of athletes, obviously they had no control over that. But I think overall, everyone walked away from the weekend a lot happier. The only thing that people weren't sort of happy with was the certain aspects of the live stream. That was about it. But when it zoomed in, it was still really crisp quality, and it improved from
Right.
prejudging to finals too. So whatever they actually did listen. So prejudging it was far too dark. At finals, I noticed, they brightened it up. They've actually addressed it and stuff. So I'm like, that's cool to see, because I mean, I think bodybuilding fans are most upset when they feel that they haven't been listened to, and they feel a bit like that. But this year, they're like, oh, the Olympia listened this year. You know, that's cool.
Sure.
So I think overall, everyone there was very, very happy. And outside of the bit of a live stream, I think everyone was very happy with this year's Olympia. So shout out to Jake Wood, the team, you, Bob, and all the athletes, because the athletes brought it too. So people weren't saying, oh, everyone was off this year. It was like, Hunter brought his best ever. Like Bonac really brought it, and they're in 6th and 7th. And then you had Brandon, who, you know, everyone was like, when he walked out, yeah, he wasn't his best, but he still brought a pretty good package, and he's down in 9th. It's like, that was a good Olympia. That was a really good Olympia.
It was really good for all those reasons, for sure. Look, guys, let's get into a few of the divisions before we wrap it up here. I want to talk about the 212, how that really played out. I want to talk about Classic, and I want to talk about the Open. So let's start with the 212 here. We had Keon coming back, and he took his 2nd Olympia title, overcoming Sean Clarita, who really didn't have a lot of updates going into this show, which we saw from a lot of competitors actually this year, more so than any other previous years. But Keon taking 1st place. Anybody have any disagreements with that necessarily, aside from you, Kerrith, of course?
No. Honestly, I gave Key his flowers, and you know, he and I talked behind the scenes, and you know, I was tracking his progress. He was tracking mine as well. Dude, I gotta say, he time well spent. Time well spent. Way to defend your fucking title. Like, can you think of a better sophomore year?
Yeah, that was a very big improvement.
Yeah. So he used the power of youth and, you know, the freedom of time to enhance his physique and take it to, you know, a different level. He took it to a different level, you know, but that's what time allows you. So, you know, we'll see what happens in a couple of months. You know, that's all I'm saying. Okay. Yeah, no, yeah, but that's what I really wanted last year, is to get that qualifier, get that, you know, that 3rd place finish, and allow myself time to grow and time to heal. So hopefully we get that this year. And yeah, listen, Sean does what Sean does, and I think that more so than ever, everybody in the 212 was kind of showing more. I disagree with that one, Kenton, because you know, from Angel to me, even Keon, the champ, was showing shit. You know, Jordan, what's his name? Fabiano, Francisco, Marco. Everybody was competing, so there was no reason to hide anything.
Right. So I didn't mean 212 in particular, but over all of the classes. Yeah, over all the classes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was just speaking on 212. That's all.
Of course. Yeah. No, I mean, you were posting your regular updates, which I always enjoyed. But yeah, 212 I thought was actually more exciting this year than probably the last few years, to be honest with you, especially with Keon, of course, the excitement coming in, seeing the improvements. Sean, which we didn't know if he was going to really pull that Hail Mary and take the title off of Keon, because like I said, we didn't see anything from him really leading up to the show. A lot of fans thought that Sean maybe wasn't at his best as compared to when he, you know, did come in and win his 1st. And a lot of people are maybe seeing a little bit of a downward trend for Sean at this point. So he might be leaving the door open for somebody else to really sneak in and take that 2nd place spot next year too. I don't know if it's going to be Angel, because I don't know what else Angel can really do. He can't put on any more muscle. He might be able to get a little bit more.
I'm gonna let you know it's not going to be Angel. I love Angel. It's not going to be Angel, but at the same time, I don't think Sean is on a downslide by any means. Like I don't think that's the case, Kenton. I think he went for a more conditioned, streamlined look, because you know the critics were saying that, well, he blew out his waist, so he brought it back in. Was it enough to take down Keon? I don't feel it was. And it was just a different strategy. It was a different approach to get a better result, but it didn't work out in his favor. So I think he just, you know, downsized a little bit, came in sharper than he was in the past. But Keon brought something that nobody was expecting to see.
I didn't really find that he had that hard, grainy conditioning that we really always saw, especially through the upper body. Like that was one of the things when he took home his first title. Just he looked like he was literally carved out of stone through the chest, shoulders, arms. But Bob, how did it look from your seat there?
So Keon was an easy winner in this one. He won fair and square last year. Sean did come in a little bit heavier, which he admitted to, came in about 6 pounds heavier. Whatever it was, it didn't look good on him. He had some folds in his back. He knew his mistake right off the bat. He says, I ain't going to make that mistake again. I'm going to go back to what got me there. And he did. Here's the problem. What he lacked was pop. Sean did not have that roundness and that pop like you saw when he was winning the title, and even what he had last year in his defeat. Keon was genetically gifted. Listen, this guy he's just put together, right? That some people just have that kind of physique, like a Phil Heath. Again, I've used a guy from years ago. Not a lot of people know, but Edgar Fletcher is very similar to a Keon Pearson. Again, just beautiful lines. That tiny waist, he flares. His whole thing was conditioning. Much like Samson. We can get into that in a little bit, but he has a far superior physique to almost everybody around him, but you can't be at 90% conditioning either. So he got himself in 95% conditioning. That's why Keon won last year. Sean, whatever he did, he brought himself back down to his fighting weight, but he lacked the pop that he had. The shoulders weren't as out there. The legs weren't as bulging. Like you see, he normally has that look like he's rocked, right? He didn't have that this year. Kerrith, to your benefit, I edge in third and fighting for second with Sean. I didn't have Angel ahead of you. I like Angel. He does bring a lot of muscle, but he's just not as genetically gifted. He's got a little wide waist, and he's kind of built like a bulldog, to his credit. But you got a prettier physique. I thought this was probably your all-time best. And I would have had you in third solid and even contending against Sean for second because, again, this wasn't the best Sean we've seen, but this is the best Kerrith that we've seen. So that was my take on it. Sometimes people just hit a wall, whether Sean's there or not, they just kind of age overnight when we see him. And you go, geez, I don't know what happened, and that could be a lot of different factors. Listen, he's a new father now. He's got, various business type of things. A lot of that can distract you or take you out, or just a simple miscalculation of bringing it down too much and lacking that pop. So, listen, he'd still look great, but Keon was an easy winner in this class against the rematch of Sean.
Yeah, for sure.
When Keon turned to the back and he just locked those legs out and just put his arms down, it was like, I feel like this Olympia was the first time that Keon really, really nailed it. Like he really 100%. Brought that conditioning in. Last year, he was really good as well, but you still saw Sean had that hardness over him. Like Sean was bursting forward and, the waist wasn't what it was before. But then this year, it was just, when he walked out, I was like, oh, well, that's God-given. That shape is God-given, like the waist and the rib cage and everything.
He's getting a little bit older, so that muscular maturity is starting to come into play, and
that's what you got, Kerrith.
Now it's earned muscle, it's just sweat equity. We're seeing sweat equity, Keon, and that's good because it's good for the sport, man. It only forces us to work harder to catch that.
100%.
Yeah, that's right. No, it was a really good 212 this year. Really good 212. One of the most exciting things, Xavier, you touched on it earlier, was the classic. I mean, I was the same way on my channel. Ooh. I had more people that tuned into classic prejudging than the finals for the open. It was ridiculous. I mean, Chris Bumstead, of course, but I mean, the fact that Chris was pushed harder than he's ever really been when it comes to any of his titles that he's taken as the champion in classic physique was a very, very exciting factor. Not just that, but who actually pushed him was the unexpected portion of that. I mean, Mike Sommerfeld, you guys, nobody saw this guy coming. Literally nobody had him in anything.
I had him. And I'm not saying that because he's on Neil's team, but I had Mike. And I said, I saw Mike.
Where did you have him? Where did you have him?
He's definitely top 3. I told him beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no way you're finishing less than third. I saw him briefly at Fit Club, and when I got to see him in the flesh, I was like, Lori, we're right. He's definitely finishing top 3. There was no question The man, you didn't even have to see him with his shirt off or in shorts. Straight up, dude, his mindset lets you know he was top 3. The way he was moving around the gym was like he was pissed off at every machine that he was using. And he just went in there and killed it. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be tired? There was not one sign of fatigue on this man. He just wanted it, you know, and I think he had something to prove, being that he had a bad year the previous year. And he told me what he did wrong. And I think he's holding himself accountable in every which way. So kudos to Mike Sommerfeld for a hell of a performance. Every pose was flawless. And he just brought presentation with class. And, you know, congrats to the champ, Chris Bumstead. But, man, Mike was on his ass, man. And if Mike did end up winning, I could see the justification.
No. Well, for this year, really?
Yeah,
against
100%.
Chris? Really?
100%.
100%. There was judges that had him winning. Literally, judges on the panel had Mike winning.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt that Chris was pushed harder this year than he's ever been pushed, like I said, in any of his 6 title defenses. That's absolutely true. I remember I saw Mike in 2022 when he took 5th, and that's when he first caught my eye. I was like, this guy has the structure to really do well in Classic. 2023, 8th place. To make that jump to 2nd place at the Olympia, pushing Chris Bumstead, like I said, harder than anybody else. Bob, what improvements did you see from Mike from your chair in the last couple of years here on the Olympia stage?
From anybody that saw Mike a couple of years ago with that breakout year saw a very good physique. He just needed to fill out in a few places and really complete his physique. And what you just saw was a complete physique. Mike Sommerfeld was polished from head to toe. He's not missing anything. He's very complete in terms of his physique development. Doesn't really have any weak points. Presents himself very well. And yeah, I didn't see the scorecards, but I would not be shocked if he had a couple of first place votes. And I'll tell you why. Even though Bumstead was still Chris Bumstead, right? You know, he's fantastic, right? But the gap has been narrowed significantly over the last couple of years. Urs Kalasinski brought his best, still a young man in the sport, a great future ahead of him. The only guy that really took a back step was Ramon, who was absolutely pouring sweat at the prejudging to the point that his color came off. I mean, we had to go wipe him down twice, you know, and then he did look much better. But, you know, there was some serious protocol there that they mismanaged, you know, whether it was his trainer, his guru, whoever he listens to. That was a huge mistake in a guy that's been a perennial, a competitor against Bumstead, even though he's never beaten him. But to drop to 4th under those circumstances, I mean, he can't be pleased. I've heard through the grapevine he's already fired his coach and he's got another one now. I don't know anything about the details, just what I heard. But Mike Sommerfeld, right now I would consider to be the heir apparent. He would definitely be in the driver's seat as Chris has sailed off into the sunset. Rightfully so. That was not only a great Olympia moment, but perfectly timed. Go out on top. Go out on the Olympia stage under your own circumstances. You know, he's not out by injury. He didn't get beat. He didn't, get the title taken from him. What a great move, great career move. He's a smart kid. And that's why he's got 25 million followers. And he just made more money in the time that they were all doing this podcast than we'll make all year. So good for C-Bum. And we wish him the best. He'll be as involved as ever with the sport because he's a leader like that. And expect a rematch next year or at the Arnold even between Urs, Mike Sommerfeld, and I would expect the return of Ramon Dino because he's better than what he showed, but that was a huge miscalculation on his part.
Yeah, I think you'll see improvements from Ramon. He'll come back and he'll be pushing for that top 2 spot again. I really think so. Although I think Urs was improved as well. I still think that Ramon can take him out as he has many, many times. You know, he's just got that shape.
If Ramon came back after and he looked 10 times better because he sweat out all that water, if he had showed up at prejudging like that, it might have been a different scenario. I don't know. I still don't know if he beats Sommerfeld because he's made that a significant improvement, but he certainly would have been in contention for 2nd or 3rd instead of, I mean, that was like an easy 4th. Let's face it.
I did have Urs in 3rd over Ramon in my predictions, but the reason that I had that was because of what I saw from Ramon really leading up to the show. I didn't see the confidence. I didn't see part of it was just a feeling, to be honest with you. But I figured that Urs was improved because he was another one of these guys that just was completely covered up, was completely doing his own thing. But when I would see him train, I was just like, this guy really this guy's coming back this year, man. I just figured that it was going to be the year that he really came back and made those substantial improvements. His color could have been better, absolutely, compared to the other guys. I think that hurt him a little bit. But
his color was fine before he sweat it all off.
So. No. Urs was very light. Urs
was
very
light. Yeah, he was a little light. And let me tell you something. If there's anything you can control on stage, it's your color. There's no bodybuilder on this earth ever in the history of bodybuilding has lost his show because he was too dark. So just a little word out there to all the competitors, right? You never heard that story.
Hey, Bob, there was one guy in Australia, I don't know what he used, but it's like he used something that was literally like some sort of blackness to it. And everyone was laughing at him like, what? It was one of those guys that probably showed up without shaving his legs sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like
I stand corrected. There's one guy in the history of bodybuilding who lost his show because he was too dark, and he's from Australia.
One. No, but he wouldn't have won it. He did have a half decent physique, but yeah, I don't think he would have won anyway. So I think your theory holds true.
The guys in gold always kill me. The guys that show up in their radiant gold.
You see that in Australia, they ordered the wrong. Back when Dream 10 was a thing, you'd occasionally see someone order they wouldn't get the red bronze. They would get the gold Dream 10, and it'd show up, and they'd put it on, and you just like a damn you chose wrong, sir.
Yeah.
It was always funny. There's always one, you know.
Yeah, no, we didn't see any of that this year, thank God. But when it came to the open class, that was another one where there were a lot of preconceptions going into the show as to how this one was going to go. There were a number that had Samson taking it home, but I wouldn't say the vast majority. A lot of people said either Derek or Hadi. I really was not 100% sure on which way it was going to go, but I did have Hadi going into the show just because after seeing him at the Arnold Classics, especially, I mean, the way that he trains going into it, and the fan in bodybuilding is coming out now. I did want to see Hadi take it home in order to match Jay Cutler for being the only other bodybuilder in history to lose the Olympia and then come back the next year and win the title back. Jay's the only one that has ever done that. 2009.
So you're going.
I'm gonna hop in there quick. I literally got to get to another podcast in a few minutes, but let me give you my 2 cents and then I'll hop off and you guys can continue. Yeah. Listen, I've been saying for 4 years now, Samson, if he gets his shit together, is Mr. Olympia. He's got the best lines, the best proportions, the best shape, best symmetry. The only thing is, like we just talked about, Kerrith, you got to be in that 95 percentile. And he was coming in at 90 percentile. You ain't going to beat Hadi or Derek in his emergence with that. He finally did it. He got to that 95 percentile. Now, for those people saying, well, he was soft, he wasn't as hard, he wasn't as conditioned, he doesn't have to be. Okay, overall, which is what we should be looking for Mr. Olympia. Does he check all the boxes? You don't have this ain't the most ripped competition. Okay, this ain't the most conditioned man in the world competition. It's Mr. Olympia. Okay, he should embody all of those boxes that I just mentioned: shape, symmetry, proportion, muscularity, thickness, presentation. He checks every one of those boxes. Was he the best at any one of those things? Arguably, yes or no. But he was the best sum of all those things. Yes, there was more guys more ripped. Yes, there was guys more hard, whatever. But that is the epitome of what we should be talking about when we come to a Mr. Olympia and what we're looking for. Was he the best overall? And I think the answer is yes. He was the best overall. He's a big man out there at almost 300 pounds at 6 foot tall. And was he conditioned enough? Yes. He finally was. And I really applaud the notion that we talked at the seminar. And the first question I asked him was, you finally got a chance to take a year off and get ready. And he says, no, I'll be at the Arnold. I'm a competing bodybuilder. That's what I do. And if these guys want to come after me, that's where I'll be. Come on, let's compete. Let's have a good time. And may the best man win. I got to applaud that attitude in a champion that's willing to put, and listen, that's how it should be. It's been too long that these bodybuilders just, I'm just going to do the Olympia. It's like, if you get beat, you get beat. If you get beat in a sport in one game, well, maybe you win tomorrow, right? It shouldn't make any difference because on game day, which is the Olympia, it's a whole different show and the judges are judging it. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. Hottie in second, I had no problem with. Derek in third was a bit of a drop, and he looked a little undersized to me this year, especially in the legs. I'm not sure what went on with his training or anything, but fourth place was obviously the big surprise in Fitzwater, who looked absolutely phenomenal. Good for him. What a great move. And big Andrew Jack in fifth. That guy I'd be keeping an eye on, man. Let me tell you, with one more, if he showed up like he did in Texas, he'd have been up there with Sampson bucking for 1 and 2. But we didn't see that. And the rest was it. Fit. Labrada looked good, but again, the waist, continues to be an issue. And Brandon Curry, you got to give it to him. He's the old guard up there. He ended up at 9th. Maybe time to assess. He's got kids that are growing up. You don't want to see a champ go down that far, but he's still represented. But anyway, that was my 2 cents, guys. I hate to drop, but I got to get on another thing. This is our time of season, right? So we got to do what we got to do.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking Olympia TV. I appreciate you taking the time, Bob. Thank you very much.
We'll do more in the future. Whatever you guys got, I'm in, man. Xavier, let's do it again, huh?
Yes, absolutely. We'll have to do something soon.
All right, boys.
Sounds good.
Thank you, man.
Great job on the weekend.
Have a good one, man.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm getting past my meals too, man. I got to bail, man.
Yeah, I got to head out soon too, man.
Yeah. Look, this went a little bit longer than I thought it would as well. Once we started getting into the future of the Mr. Olympia in particular, it's just the way it goes. Look, I think
we could go for 5 hours if we could go on an IV or something. You know what I mean? Like just a food
for
drip.
Sure.
Just give a meal in.
No, look. I don't think that. Nobody here thinks that Sampson was an undeserved champion. And anybody have any that'd be a question. Anybody have any particular quarrels or qualms with any of the placings?
Me personally, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I actually thought Hottie's conditioning was going to make him the champ, but I'm happy to see Sampson take it home. And it's for lack of a better term, it's a colossal fuck you to everybody that doubted him and criticized him for doing that. What was it? The France show?
Yeah.
It just goes to show that, armchair quarterbacks aren't necessarily good coaches, So I think he made the right move. He knows his body at this point. He always has been a multiple show guy. And I don't think that he should change that formula because he's got success with it. I mean, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. No, I didn't have any problems with any of the placings in particular. Some people think that Martin could have taken, third place over Derek, but I think you could have gone either way for me on that. Yeah, I could have too.
I could have seen that happen. Went either way. It's hard to knock out the champ, and Derek, he had enough to hold on to third, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And people are acting like Derek was bad, you know what I mean? Like Derek, if you isolate the video of him, the Gilco footage, and if you said, take away, we haven't even seen the contest yet, and you say that's how Mr. Olympia this year, or if you just show me that video, I'd say, yeah, it's Derek. That's maybe going to win, or that's probably going to win. It's just that everyone was so good, in my opinion. I think that Derek didn't slip much on last year. The quads from a front were a little bit smaller, but in part, I've actually sort of gone back and reviewed it a bit. In part, that's the way he posed them too. He's always done it with the legs bowed out, on that the ab pose. He decided to lock it out this year, which took away a lot of that thickness look to the leg. So just reviewing his ab and thigh from last year, reviewing a few other poses, there's actually a few that are dramatically better. That most muscular, there's a lot more pop to it. And there's a lot, so I can see the argument for Martin too.
Yeah, but you saw Derek's massively came up. No question. So he made improvements. And like you said, he made adjustments in posing that might have not accentuated what he had last year. Shit, it could have even gotten better. We don't know. He didn't pose it that way, But kudos to everybody that competed because that was a hell of a show, man. But guys, I got to thank you for having me on, Tenzin. Thank you, man. It's been real. It's been fun. I'd love to chop it up with you guys again, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Look, well, get through Japan, get yourself home, and then we'll chat. We'll see what we're wrapping that one up. That'd be awesome.
All right, bro. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks then.
All right, gentlemen. I'm going to wrap this whole show. Yeah, man. You have a good one. I'm going to wrap up the whole show right here, you guys. All right. So till next time, we'll catch you guys in the next one.